Hello, Grit-Lit Scholars. It is the beginning of week number 6. Thank you for tuning in. All right, so last week was something else, wasn't it? We had Irma visit us, and we had power outages all over the place. We had internet outages all over the place, and because of that, I ended up. I didn't end up getting anything done until I think it was Wednesday or maybe Thursday of last week. Just know that last week was an anomaly. Normally, we don't have hurricanes blow through southwest Georgia, ever. So we had that happen last week. As a result, I've had to make some adjustments. Additionally, I also made some adjustments because people were having trouble getting their textbooks or financial aid or whatever was going on with that. So, here's the deal. I extended everything weeks 1 through 5 for the deadline up until next Sunday, which is September 24th. Now, if you've been keeping up with the work, that doesn't mean anything to you because basically you have very little work. If you've been using not getting a textbook as an excuse, you may have a little bit of work. So get that work caught up because I'm about out of patience now with the whole textbook thing. We are now in the 6th week. You should have your textbook. Somehow or other, you should have your textbook. So get that done. All right. One other thing that the weather last week caused was a delay in the start of the Romanticism exam. So I went ahead and put that off until this week. So it opens up this morning, which is Monday, and it will run through next Sunday. I also, when you go into the week 6 folder, I have a Romanticism study guide in there. So it gives you the terms you will need to do well in the exam. It also explains how the exam works, which is that it's a few questions of general knowledge about Victorianism, and then there's some direct quotes in there. The direct quotes aren't trick questions. These are quotes that we have discussed throughout the semester. Many of you wrote about them in your postings, and so they should not be a surprise. Now, I did not get a chance to finish all of the reader response questions, but I did get some of those graded. I have graded all the quizzes, but did not get a chance to grade all of the reader response. But the ones I have graded should give you an idea of what you need to do, because I did make comments on them. Also, there is a handout in the D2L, in the useful D2L handouts folder that shows you how to see my comments directly. I won't be doing that anymore after this week because it just takes too long for some papers because there's so many errors. But if there are not so many errors, you probably got a pretty good grade. But you still should look at those comments on there anyway. From this point forward, which is the week 4 postings, the week 5 posting, and now the week 6 posting, I will start just making all my comments in the grades book and not so much on the essay itself. So that's something to know. But look at those comments on those essays on weeks 2 and 3 because they can be helpful to you, especially if you're having trouble with certain grammatical mistakes. So if I tell you in your comments you're missing commas too often, I mark some of those commas in the papers themselves, which is where that whole see my comments in D2L comes in handy. I won't be doing that again from this week forward. All right, so take the Romanticism exam. For the Victorian posting this week, you only got Alfred Lord Tennyson. When one thinks about Victorian poetry, Alfred Lord Tennyson is the name that most people think of. He was an icon. Now, I only had you read a couple of his poems, 2 of my personal favorites, which are Ulysses and Lady of Shalott. Both of those are actual stories that are based upon legends and myths that came before Tennyson was ever even born. So these are reimaginings of old stories. And so that's something to think about when you do the postings. But Tennyson is also well known for In Memoriam, which is where the whole line about it's better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all came from. He's also well known for a poem called The Charge of the Light Brigade, which is not one of my favorites, so I didn't assign it. But if you love Tennyson, you should read that poem because it's well worth a read. So be aware of that. So this week, you've got to get caught up on everything you're behind on. You've got to take the Romanticism exam. You've got to read Tennyson, and you've got to take the quiz. And by the way, on that quiz, you don't necessarily have to read the Introduction to Victorianism. I would read it if I were you, if you have time, because it'll help you get an idea of how important the Victorian era was. But a lot of those questions in that quiz can be answered from that slideshow, the PowerPoint slideshow, Introduction to Victorianism. So be aware of that. All right, so this week you've got the Romanticism exam. You've got to do any postings that you're not done yet. You've got to write any essays you've not written yet. And you've got the reading quiz for week 6, which is the Introduction to Victorianism and Tennyson, and then of course your response to Tennyson. So that's what you got this week. So I hope that I like routine. I'm a person that likes everything to be normal. So last week really drove me crazy. I'm glad that we're back in the routine again. I hope it remains this way for the remainder of the semester, and I hope that that will benefit you as well. I really do hope you'll enjoy Tennyson. And if you have any questions, of course, email me and I'll be happy to answer them.